See how it takes a lifetime of suffering to school an intelligence and make it a soul. Keats. The body's nervous system controls everything we think, feel or do. It is the essence of who we are. It comprises the peripheral system and the central nervous system. The peripheral system are cells which afferent and carry towards the central nervous system, allowing us to feel, and cells which are efferent and carry away from the central nervous system, allowing us to move. The peripheral nervous system has two main types of cells. Cells which either create or carry the signals, neurons, and cells called satellite cells around signal producers, swan cells around signal carriers, which insulate the system. The system is electrochemical, and even small imbalances can have an effect. The peripheral nervous system carries signals of a somatic or voluntary nature, when we choose to move, or an autonomic, involuntary nature, which are involved in the digestive system, heart rate, etc. The central nervous system has only around 10% of its cells as actual neurons, though these large cells comprise around 50% of the mass. The other 90% of the cells are smaller and do things like ependymal cells, which regulate the cerebrospinal fluid, astrocytes, which stabilize the cell positions and are involved in the immune response, microglia, again for the immune response and for destruction of dead neurons, and of course the oligodendrocytes of the myelin sheaths, which insulate the system, electrochemical balance being important. Neurons themselves comprise of a cell body, much as the same as any other cell, including a nucleus, an axon, which extends from the cell bodies, or axons, and the dendrites to which they extend, which are the junction with other neurons through which signals transmit. Some of the multipolar neurons in the brain don't have axons. They are linked directly to the dendrites without need of any form of extension. The dendrites branch, usually into hundreds of branches, and those branches link to the next cell in either the chain of information from the peripheries of the bodies or the network of signals between multipolar neurons in the brain, at the point called the synapse. There are also synapses which link directly to axons, dendrites and cell bodies, though these are less understood. Synapses come in two types and either transmit signals electronically or chemically. Electrical synapses are generally common and allow for the rapid transmission of signals, though generally the signals are unidirectional. On occasion, the signal may be of sufficient strength, for example when placing your hand on a gas hob, that the signal will arc across an area called the integration centre, where synapses from that part of the body meet at the spinal cord, and a sensory stimulus will produce a muscular reaction before the signal reaches the brain, a reflex reaction. Chemical synapses work by the transmission of neurotransmitter chemicals across a gap of around 1/1,000,000th of an inch. It's unidirectional across the synapse between neurons. The signal will not deteriorate as would an electrical impulse, and as long as the neurotransmitter is in place, the signal will be sent. This means the neurotransmitter needs to be removed by either an enzyme, taken back by means of an enzyme to its usual storage location in the synapse, or to fuse to another location in the body. Chemical synapses may be excitatory or inhibitory in their function and effect upon the body. Neurotransmitters, the chemicals which cause the effect, may be amino acids, monoamines, peptides, or other chemicals which mimic the effects. Different things affect the equilibrium of the system, including, of course, drugs, some which are taken specifically for the effect they have. The body tries to accommodate for this effect, usually by producing less of the usually body-produced neurotransmitter. This in turn leads to an increased desire to accommodate, and that in turn is how addiction to drugs occurs. Hormones may affect the balance, and this may in turn affect a person's moods. This is most obvious in those who aren't used to the production of hormones, teenagers, who frequently need a few years to both control the production and to better control their reaction to the production of hormones. It is also true that some hormones are produced in greater quantities during different stages of life. Our mood, our understanding of a situation, which is in turn based upon our experience, also affects the production of some neurotransmitters, most notably epinephrine and norepinephrine, which produces a hyperstress reaction to a dangerous situation, allowing us to fight or run away with increased vigour. Corticosteroids, which regulate the amount of epinephrine and norepinephrine produced. Vasopressin, which prevents dehydration, reducing the desire to urinate. The desire often returning as an overcompensate as soon as the situation is ended. Endogenous opioids, which help control pain and overwhelming emotions. And oxytocin, which acts to inhibit the consolidation of memory. The memory is still being produced, but its electrochemical strength being lessened, so that it's more likely to decay. The production of these neurotransmitters is obviously beneficial in dangerous or stressful situations, since they help us cope with the immediate situation. However, in situations of apparent helplessness, which is combined with stress, the neurotransmitters will tend to increase and have long-term detrimental effects. Memory is learning, a phrase coined by Ebbinghaus in 1885. This, of course, is easy to identify when you remember something and repeat it as wrote, even though I can't remember where I originally read it or the following study. In the 1970s, studies on brain-damaged patients who had seemingly lost the ability to process from short-term memory to long-term memory, necessary for the memory to last more than 30 seconds, took place. In that study, those patients were taught skills such as table tennis or playing the piano. When asked if they could do either of these things, the patients would respond that they could not and had never tried. The patients could, however, demonstrate an accomplished ability when asked to attempt to demonstrate. Memory has a declarative and procedural element. These may explain why some sportsmen who are naturally talented are unable to become great coaches. The wealth of their learning being procedural memory and not something they can orate. In high-stress situations over a prolonged period, or extreme stress and helplessness, even in a short period of time, the excessive production of such hormones is capable of inhibiting the ability to remember the event in the declarative long-term memory. This may also occur with the use of drugs. However, the procedural memory, the stress, the suffering, and the feelings remain and are likely to remain with the victim for life. Slight triggers will cause emotional pain akin to the original event. This is why wars, bullying, and rape can only be commenced by those who are truly ignorant or who are psychopathic. Either the person is young and stupid, so they've not yet learned enough to achieve empathy, or they are, in simple terms, evil and incapable of considering the effects their actions have upon others. It is also why victims of such atrocities often find it impossible to put the events behind them. Bullied people find it difficult to make friends and often find themselves alone and suicidal. Victims of wars may never find peace, and rape victims may never be able to have a loving, caring relationship. Psychopaths may never be accommodated for, though the right upbringing may ameliorate the harm they do. But other than that, this is what we should teach our children, so that ignorance doesn't lead to lifelong harm for victims.